What is good, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I have a little speedy shoe for you. And this is a non-plated speedy shoe, and obviously you can see it's from Craft because this is the NORDLITE Tempo. And no surprises that, just as its name suggests, this shoe is going to be best at faster paces, at tempo paces. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I just want to say thanks to Craft. They were good enough to send me this pair of the NORDLITE Tempo for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say, they don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. But that said, if you want to pick up a pair of the Craft NORDLITE Tempo, you can, and it'll cost you $180. And of course, I will place a link in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. Now, $180? Yeah, it's expensive. There's no getting around that. But still, I think the Craft NORDLITE Tempo offers a lot, at least for a runner looking for a particular shoe to do a particular job. Now, the Craft NORDLITE Tempo is featuring a full stack. We have 40 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. In a US men's size 9, the NORDLITE Tempo would tip the scale at 8.5 ounces or 241 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 12.5, it'll tip the scale at 10.5 ounces or 299 grams. So a sub 300 gram shoe in my size, it's always a treat. Maybe I'm just suggestible, and when I see under 300 grams on the scale, I automatically think, yeah, it's going to be light, it's going to be nimble. But whatever it is, this shoe feels light and nimble. But we'll get into the ride in just a second. So let's start at the top and work our way down. And if I hold that up, you can see there is absolutely no heel collar, or the heel collar is there, there's just no padding on the heel collar. But if you look on the back, you can see like a little half moon shape, and that is the padding. It's just a little bit of padding right on the heel to hold your heel in place, and it does its job. Seems like I'm always complaining about just shoes having too much heel collar padding, and I know that's usually on daily trainers, and this is not a daily trainer. But this is definitely more on the race end of the spectrum as far as how light and minimal everything is and the amount of padding. Now, the heel counter on the NORDLITE Tempo is fairly flexible. There's no like internal piece of plastic there, but it's still fairly rigid. I mean, I can press down on it, but even so, I did get a good enough heel lock and didn't experience any heel slip. Now, that lack of heel slip is probably because Craft is also building all their new shoes off a new last. So if you have run in previous Craft shoes, like over the last couple of years, these new shoes with the new last are going to fit a little better, or maybe not better for you because you already know how a Craft shoe fits, but the new last is going to be more in line with actual sizing. Now, for me personally, I generally wear between a 12 and a 13, and you heard that I'm wearing a 12.5 in the NORDLITE Tempo, and that is definitely the right size for me. I could wear a 13, but I'm happy I got the 12.5. The fit is just really nice. I still have enough room in my toe box, and actually maybe the 13 would have been just slightly too long, but I'm still going to say true to size on this one. But also with another caveat, it's true to size, but for narrow feet. I'll tell you right now that the Craft NORDLITE Tempo is not wide foot friendly. I really don't have wide feet, so I didn't run into any issues with the room in the toe box, the room in the heel. It all seemed to fit me very nicely, but maybe that's because this shoe just is made for me. You know, there are other shoes where I have to cinch them down too much and kind of make them fit my foot, whereas the NORDLITE Tempo, for me at least, it seems to be made for my foot. So that's a good thing for me. If you have wider feet than me, I don't know, you may have to size up in order to get a little extra room. Now, for the upper, just like the heel collar and the heel counter, Craft is very much on this kind of race day train, because the upper is an open woven single layer mesh, and it is very light and very breathable. And just like I do with all my kind of race day light upper shoes, I'm going to hold that up to the light shining on me now, and I can see right through the shoe. No one is going to be overheating running in the NORDLITE Tempo. As far as overlays go, yeah, it doesn't look like there are many overlays, right? We've got the Craft logo right here on the lateral side, nothing on the medial side. We do have this TPU overlay coming around the toe box, which again is just giving a little structure to the upper to keep that upper off your toes. But I think in this case, it's probably more of a styling issue. I mean, it looks pretty good, but obviously with a road shoe, you don't need that extra protection from rocks or anything like that. You can also see that on the upper, there are like these ribs, and this is just a different weave of the mesh that they've kind of made into the design of the upper, and that also gives a little structure to the upper. You can see quite obviously that the upper isn't kind of collapsing in on itself. You have individual reinforcements along each of the eyelets, and then underneath that reinforcement, there is just, I don't know, it looks like just a little thicker weave of the upper, just to give that whole eyelet chain a little more support. The tongue, like everything else, is super thin. It is super race day inspired. The tongue is gusseted, and we do have a lace loop here on the front. Now, the tongue really doesn't offer any protection other than just a wispy piece of material. So beware to those of you that maybe get a little lace bite from the laces cutting into the top of your foot if you don't have enough tongue protection. This tongue isn't offering much protection, but saying that, I didn't experience experience any issues. And I sometimes do experience issues with some shoes. Not so with the NORDLITE Tempo. Now, the insole of the NORDLITE Tempo is removable, just in case you wanted to replace it with anything else. Or, like me, when you go out for a run and you soak the shoes through, it's good to just take out that insole to let them air out a little bit and dry out after your run. That is a daily occurrence for me right now in the summer here in Florida, especially when you're putting in the work, and the work is all I put in with this shoe. Like, I'm not taking this shoe out for easy runs, but again, we'll talk about the ride and the use of this shoe in just a second. Now, just a quick mention on the laces. The laces are, well, they're flat linguine laces, and they are quite, I don't know, slippy. They're the type of laces that I would expect to come undone, and they did come undone once, but I have put in well over my testing miles, so I've run over 50k in the NORDLITE Tempo, and they've only come undone once, so I don't know. I can't really complain. I'm only saying that because when I look at them and I touch them, they kind of remind me of the type of laces that would come untied. You know what, if everyone could just switch to these ribbed laces, I would be a lot happier. Like, can you do it for me? And I know this is silly because 99% of the time my laces don't come untied. I just have that sense of security when the laces are ribbed. Anyway, moving on. And we are moving on to the midsole. Now, in the NORDLITE Tempo, Craft is using their CR Foam Pro. And that CR Foam Pro includes 15% PEBA. So you get what you get with a PEBA foam. It's going to make it just a little more responsive, a little lighter, and it seems to work quite well. But again, we'll discuss the ride in just a second. And then coming down to the outsole, yeah, you can see we have a training amount of outsole on here. Like, the NORDLITE Tempo is made to put a lot of miles, a lot of kilometers into it. We have full coverage up on the forefoot, a lot of coverage down here on the heel, the little segmented section here on the medial side. Now, Craft is calling this outsole Hyper Grip, and it is in collaboration with Vittoria. So obviously Vittoria makes high quality tires for bikes. So putting that kind of grippiness on the bottom, it's going to work. I didn't run into any grip issues, but to be honest, I don't often run into grip issues, but just looking at it and kind of feeling it like that does feel a little grippier than normal. Yeah, it doesn't really help you any, but that's just my observation. And then we've got this nice cutout area in the middle, which is just saving weight and making the shoe fairly flexible. And the shoe is fairly flexible. It doesn't seem to ride as flexible as it feels like this, but I guess now we have to talk about the ride. Now, I already stated in the beginning of the video that this is a tempo shoe, right? The NORDLITE Tempo. We know what it's made for. It is written on the tin. But a lot of times with training shoes, I think they work well at all paces. And for some shoes, I would suggest that you could actually use them as a daily trainer. That is not going to be my recommendation, or it's not how I would use the NORDLITE Tempo, because I do find that the foam, the CR Foam Pro, just a little firm. And I say that for running at slower paces. But for me, when I go out for my workouts, so let's say I'm going to put in some intervals or a tempo run, I will usually start by running a mile or two to warm up before I actually get into the hard work portion of the workout. Then when it's done, I'll usually cool down for a mile or two, where I'm just running easy, let that heart rate come down, you know? And for those slower miles, both before and after, it's almost like the CR foam is too firm to be comfortable when I'm running at slower paces. Now, in the shoe's defense, it is a tempo shoe, right? It's not made for those easy miles, but I still like a shoe to be comfortable. And I also think I'm pretty sensitive to shoe softness, because generally speaking, at least for my easy runs, I do like a shoe to be fairly soft. Now, this changes when I'm running fast, but when I am running easy, yeah, I like that plush ride. Now, here's the thing. As soon as you start picking up the pace in the NORDLITE Tempo, I'm not going to say the shoe comes alive, because it's been alive the whole time. It just kind of stretches its legs and feels a lot better when you're running fast. And as I'm going out and I'm testing this shoe and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say on these videos, I'm coming home and I'm making notes, what I have found is that when I'm running easy, the shoe feels too firm, at least too firm for my preference. But then when I start picking up the pace, be that intervals, be that a tempo run, that feeling of firmness kind of changes into that feeling of responsiveness. And the shoe feels fantastic when I'm running fast. Now, remember, I was almost going to say that you have a good amount of road feel in this shoe, but that's because the midsole foam is just a little on the firm side. Remember, we've got 40 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot, 6mm drop. There is a lot of protection underfoot here. But because the foam is on the denser side, when you start picking up the pace, it just feels more responsive. That firmness does kind of translate into road feel, and it feels just really good to run fast. So because of that, I am going to say that the Craft NORDLITE Tempo is going to be good for, obviously, your faster workouts, your tempo, your intervals, but also if you're looking for a non-plated race day shoe, Craft NORDLITE Tempo is probably going to work for you. It's a shoe that feels fast, it's light enough, it's breathable enough, it ticks a lot of those boxes. Also, if you are looking for the NORDLITE Tempo at $180, you're probably looking at some other shoes too. And I think maybe if you're considering the NORDLITE Tempo, you might also be considering the Topo Spectre 2. Now, the Spectre 2 does not have as much stack height. We have 37 in the hill, 32 in the forefoot for a 5mm drop. It'll cost you $165, $15 less than the NORDLITE Tempo, and in my size tips the scale at 285 grams. So it weighs in at 14 grams less than the NORDLITE Tempo. However, I probably wouldn't use these shoes for the same thing, even though on paper they are both non-plated fast shoes. Because the Piba foam in the Spectre 2 is just a little softer, I would probably use this for more long distance stuff, and I would use the NORDLITE Tempo for shorter stuff. So if I had to pick one of these for race day, I'd probably use the Spectre 2 for long races like half marathon or marathon, and I'd use the NORDLITE Tempo for 5K, 10K. Next up, I think you might also be considering the Nike Pegasus Plus. Now, the Nike Pegasus Plus has 35 in the hill, 25 in the forefoot for a 10mm drop. It'll cost $180, so the same price as the NORDLITE Tempo. My size tips the scale at 307 grams, so it weighs 8 grams more than my size in the NORDLITE Tempo. I'm going to say the same thing for the Pegasus Plus as I did for the Spectre 2. I'd probably use this for longer runs and still the NORDLITE Tempo for shorter runs, because if I had to run really fast, I'm definitely going with the NORDLITE Tempo. And finally, a shoe where the ride just reminded me of being similar to the NORDLITE Tempo, and that's the ASICS Magic Speed 4. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Matt, how can you choose a carbon-plated up-tempo shoe to go against a non-plated up-tempo shoe? And that's because the ride feels very similar to me. Now, obviously, because we have a carbon plate in the Magic Speed 4, it is not going to be as flexible. This is very rigid. Still, I still stand by it. The ride is very similar to me, and I would use these shoes for the same type of runs and workouts. Now, the Magic Speed 4 will cost you $170, and we have a little more stack height. We have 43 in the heel, 35 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop, and the Magic Speed 4 will cost you $170, so it's $10 less than the NORDLITE Tempo. So guys, what do you think? Is the NORDLITE Tempo something you are thinking of picking up? Is this a shoe that you are interested in? The best thing about the NORDLITE Tempo is that it's a shoe that is firmly in its own lane. Like, this shoe is made for a specific type of run, and I love that about it. So if you have run in any craft shoes, if you're thinking about picking up the NORDLITE Tempo, definitely drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of Craft's NORDLITE Tempo. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.